welcome back to the Messed Up Movies Podcast, the podcast celebrating movies and filmmakers that embrace the unhinged, the insane, the outrageous, the off-kilter, and the all-around kind of messed up fun you can't take your eyes off of. What's up, everybody? I'm your host, Griffey, still recovering. Sorry if my voice sounds even more terrible than normal. We're going to get there. Joined as always by my friend, co-host, and living merman.
Oh, Alex Dandino. Friends, let me ask you a question. Do you like cabins in the woods? That's the real...
Do you?
Well, if you do, there's a Patreon available for you. The Messed Up Movies Patreon. What you do, you give us $1. That's it. You get access to our little cabin in the woods, the Discord,
right,
along with the other cabin in the woods we own, which is the exclusive library of copious awesome things we have there. Our Black Mirror miniseries, Tales from the Griff, which is still going. We have 2 seasons left, right? We have 2 seasons.
So we got 5 seasons of Tales from the Crypt miniseries. We're plowing through Black Mirror right now. A lot of people are digging that. Our Patreon exclusive library, I think, is damn near 100 episodes.
Yeah.
So lots of good stuff over there. Community. We would love for you guys to be a part of, please.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you go to YouTube, subscribe to the Misfit Parade YouTube, misfitparade.com, subscribe to our newsletter there, so you can keep track of our ongoing production of Mr. Cream Jeans Hidey Hole, our first feature film and anthology horror film. You'll want to do that. We're on all the socials. Send TikToks, Reels, love, engagement, comments, whatever the algorithm needs from us. We all work for the algorithm.
Please.
Make sure you leave 5-star ratings and reviews. Let your friends know what we're doing. That's how we can grow this thing. Oh, my normal, jovial, heavy metal yells are just tough on the old voice today.
Yeah, this is good.
But I'm excited. We're starting our new April curation. It's an April Fool's gotcha curation, right? What happens when you turn on a movie and you're like, I know this movie, I got this, and then all of a sudden, a dramatic twist, right?
Twist.
Maybe this is the April Fool's nipple twist curation. So we thought the movie that most exemplifies this, Cabin in the Woods, right? Cabin in the Woods, essentially, from the outside, right, as an observer, might look like your standard slasher. And then all of a sudden, we find out there are many machinations behind the scene. Twist! And it becomes so much more than just another slasher. So, Alex, would you like to hit us up with the key players, the synopsis, all the good stuff we need?
Of course. The Cabin in the Woods is a 2011 science fiction, comedy, horror film. It's quite enjoyable, isn't it? It's directed by Drew Goddard in his directorial debut. Written by Drew Goddard and a lesser-known filmmaker known as Joss Whedon.
Joss Whedon?
Joss Whedon?
I'm sure we'll never hear that name again. That's fine.
We're all quietly trying to forget him at this point.
Dude, what a fall from grace, man.
He was like
the king of the nerds for years.
For well over a decade, Joss Whedon.
If you love Firefly, Buffy, like that guy was the man. He brought us our first Marvel universe. And
it's Buffy, Angel, Firefly, and then he became the Marvel Man. And he was the Marvel Man during probably, I'd say, the most like between the first Avengers movie and Avengers Age of Ultron, that little gap right there is probably where it was at its height of power. Like the most popular of its moments. Like that is like the true like meteoric rise. Yeah. That like gap of like 4 or 5 movies.
And apparently, sadly, everyone we loved was a huge piece of shit.
Yeah, he was apparently a huge piece of shit. But that's neither here nor there at this point. I will say this. It is important to mention the cast of this film because one of the actors went on to do some pretty important things in the indie world. Chris Hemsworth.
Little-known actor, Thor. Chris Hemsworth.
Actually, I believe when he was working on this movie was when he got the call that he was going to be Thor.
Hell yeah, dude. Great.
This is also one of those great movies that... So this movie got shot in like 2008 or 2009 and then got shelved because MGM was going through financial issues. There was a chance that we would have never seen this movie.
Isn't that insane? Because look at just this cast, right? Kristen Connolly, loved her in the movie. Franz Kranz, loved him in the movie. Jesse Williams. But when you get to the behind the scenes, you got Richard Jenkins, Bradley Whitford, and Sigourney Weaver all pop up as part of this corporation.
And this
the amount of talent this movie has.
And this movie
ridiculous.
almost got shelved because of financial issues at the studio.
Hey man, it's a hard world out here making movies, dude.
And I remember reading about this. So in the December. So Harry Knowles used to do for his birthday. Harry Knowles,
another legendary king of the nerds who fell from
another
grace.
Legendary king of the nerds who couldn't keep his hands to himself.
Got offered to throw hands with Uwe Boll, but couldn't make the maximum weight threshold.
Don't say it
to get in the ring.
So.
We really got robbed of Uwe Boll beating the shit out of Harry Knowles. I'll never get over how I wish that would have happened.
Instead we just got Harry Knowles as a teacher in the faculty. So Harry Knowles used to do this for his birthday. He did this thing with I believe it's the Austin Film Critics Society, but basically he did this marathon of like movies he loved. But later on, when Ain't It Cool News became very popular, he started allowing like filmmakers to premiere things, especially filmmakers that he would have helped through Ain't It Cool. It was called the Butt-Numb-a-thon. So when there was a very good chance that Cabin in the Woods was about to get shelved, Drew Goddard was like, well, let's just give it to Harry. So Harry Knowles screened it at the 2010 Butt-Numb-a-thon. Or maybe it's a 2011 Butt-Numb-a-thon? Yeah, this is 2011 Butt-Numb-a-thon. And people were like, holy shit, this movie rips.
And it does. It absolutely
And a year later, it was released in theaters. Just took a year.
I absolutely remember being floored by this movie when I saw it in theaters. I loved it. It's such a creative idea, right? Essentially, it's these kids are going to a traditional cabin in the woods for a slasher setup. But we keep cutting back to this kind of like military underground like fortress, right? And we're like, what the fuck is this? What's going on?
Right.
The setup is that what we learn is that these slasher movies we've always loved. And actually horror movies writ large, right? When we go around the world, we see what looks it has the aesthetics of J-horror. We see like a kaiju movie at one point. So all of these other countries all the horror movies that we've loved, right? This movie's thesis is that those are ritualistic events to keep a race of ancient gods subdued by offering them sacrifices, right? The sacrifices are run, and they have to follow these rules of a traditional horror movie, and they have to die in certain orders, right? All of the tropes become weapons to then play with and pick apart in this, right? So I thought I'd talk here. Why do you think the slasher genre was so ripe for this kind of meta revision?
Well, let's see. At this time in 2010... we're coming down pretty hard off of this like torture porn era of movies.
Yes.
And like if you read a little bit about so Drew Goddard and Joss Whedon wrote this in like 3 days. If you ever read anything about like
I hate always hearing stories of screenwriters that are like, see, sometimes like this, they're like, yeah, we wrote it fast. And you're like, God, to be that talented. And then there's other times like when Aronofsky's like, I wrote Mother over a weekend, and you're like, I could tell. Right? Like, it's a real double-edged sword.
So I think, like, if you read a little bit about what inspired them, a lot of it has to do with the fact that we had swung the pendulum of, like, what was going to sell in the genre so far into, like, torture porn and just sort of, like, murdery, bloody nonsense that they were just like, well, let's talk about that. So for me, as someone who does not routinely go to, I don't necessarily dive immediately into horror movies. It's not something that I'm like, it's not my trigger response. I think that this movie works actually my wife loves this movie, and she also does not watch horror movies. She does not watch these movies generally with me. She's gotten a lot better because of the pod over the years, but this movie has always worked for her, and I think it has a lot to do, A, with it's a great cast, but B, to flip a bunch of genre tropes on their ear and talk about them and sort of the meta context of them, I think works for a lot of people. And also kind of, it does that thing that I think a lot of horror movies, you can't do. If you have trouble watching movies like horror movies, it does that thing that you need it to do, which is essentially like takes the lid off the can and then you can just like look at it from 1,000 feet above, and you're like, oh, okay, now I'm watching it the way that it's comfortable for me, rather than being like so close to the action. Because I don't care, but I like when people. It's an easier thing when you look at something protracted like that, and you're like, oh, it's like a thing, and there's another part.
There's
of it.
a layer of safety in the kind of game that we're playing.
That meta layer of the game makes people feel a lot better about watching something like that. So I totally get it why this movie, like, and again, it's a great movie anyways, but I get it why this one crosses that like genre divide, and you can watch it as someone who's never watched. Like, there's so many people who watch who like, I don't like horror movies, but I do like Cabin in the Woods, and I'm like, yeah, because
exactly. And I think a lot of that comes from this, you know, because like I am like I always go to horror movies first. That's always where I start. What I like is it kind of goes into some of the things, like as horror fans or a heavy metal guy, right? I'm both. You get these like, what do you like that? I can't understand what they're saying, right? Like these heavy metal things like, oh, it's so obnoxious, or horror movies, right? Like everyone acts so dumb in the horror movies. Yeah. All right, well, we get these scenes where like people are trying to make the right choice, and then all of a sudden out of a tree stump, a little bit of pheromones, right? The lighting changed a little bit. It's like, yeah, that's why when you are like, your body's like, hey, something not right is going on here. Maybe we should have sex on this nice bed of moss amidst these forest trees. Because that's being forced upon them. Yeah. Right? That these people have had, the blonde has had chemicals put into her hair dye, right? That's been slowly dumbing her down for weeks, right? So we have these elements of, it explains away some of the things that people struggle with horror movies, right? And it gives it this fun layer where it lets us say not that these are problems with the genre, but it lets us look at them in this kind of loving embrace, like, oh, we love that our horror movies do that. Well, like, and this is why.
This is the one that I always love about, especially in this movie, is honestly, it's the Harbinger. Like, because to me, logic dictates that if you meet a guy like that on a country road, you're like, I'm getting the fuck out of here. Like, I'm not going to any cabin where that guy is the closest gas station. Not a chance. Like,
yeah, if that's the first guy I meet in town,
the first guy,
he is the commerce face of this community, I am worried about what comes next.
Like, again, like, but that's what makes it entertaining. And again, and I watching this last night too, I think I don't know, like, because I know that you and I talked about this too. Is like, what archetypes would we be? Because basically, when you get to the through the movie, you find out like all of these fit a certain archetype to please these overarching gods that we have to please, these old ones. I realized I'm not sure I fit an archetype, but I'll tell you who I damn sure would have been Richard Jenkins or Bradley Whitford, just like quietly lording my superiority.
You think you're because I was going to say, I think
you and I definitely would be the ones sitting behind the monitor like, oh, these guys suck. Jesus Christ.
I would like to think I'm a Bradley Whitford. I'm probably more of a Fran's Cran. If I'm probably the fool if we're doing our logistics. I mean, there's a world, if you had to be in the cabin, I think you could have been, who was it? Holden, Jesse Williams.
I would have been Jesse Williams for sure.
Just like the cool, nice, like understanding guy. Yeah, right? Well, that would probably be our two roles.
He's the scholar. That's my motif, probably.
Oh, there we go. Highfalutin. I think that's who you would have been too.
Oh, and then, absolutely.
Yeah, but really Whitford and Jenkins.
You and I are Whitford and Jenkins
like,
sitting there like
rubes.
Oh my God.
How do they not understand our great genius? It's one of my favorite things in the movie is watching Whitford and Jenkins as people keep coming up to them. They're like, oh, what you did last year with that was brilliant. And they're like, oh, just doing my job. But like you can tell they're so ecstatic. And Whitford's like picking out like who he's gonna like, slam ham with later because of his
I would be Whitford in this regard because you would constantly be like, dude, stop picking the merman. I'm like, I just want to see a merman.
I just want to see a merman.
I just want to see a merman.
But see, that's what I mean, right? Just even the board. When the board comes out and they do the betting pool on who's going to, like, what monsters it going to be, that's just a love, like, this whole movie is just a love letter to fans of the genre. And the more that you are steeped in the genre, the more you get out of that, right? Even the debate between... But it was zombies. It's like, no, this is murderous religious hillbilly zombies. That's a different subsect, right, of how the zombie occurs. See, I think it's classic just love letter to the genre. And I think horror fans and metal fans, right, they're some of the most loyal fans. I remember I read a thing about Spotify a year or two ago, and it was like heavy metal bands have the most loyal listeners who will come back and just listen to their stuff over and over and over and over. And it doesn't change as much flavor of the month as like per se pop music and stuff like that, right? Like if you are a horror fan or a metal fan, it's you are committed in an almost lifestyle level, right? And I think this movie reminds us why, right? And I think it's fun because then you, to your point, you can take it and watch it with your mother, right? Like my mom loves this movie, right? Everyone I have shown it to likes it because it doesn't have that base level. If you don't like the murder hillbilly zombies, there's still stuff for you to enjoy. And it is insanely funny and the cast is great. All right, let's get to this. The world building and the rules, right? So we kind of mentioned it. There are 5 archetypes that must be killed, right? The fool, the jock, the virgin, the whore, and the scholar, right?
Jesus Christ, the whore.
I mean, it's not, we can't be too...
Listen, loose lips, let's do this.
Old loosey-goosey over there has got to get got. Did you see what she did to that wolf? Which, by the way, yes.
That's going to do it for you this time?
That works for me every time, that scene. So I thought that part of it was really fascinating. They also have to be killed in a certain order. I thought the way the movie doled this out, right? Because at first we just see like some blood. We see a vial break. We don't really know what's happening until we're well into the movie, right? So the idea that not only do these characters have to show up at the cabin, they have to ignore the harbinger. They have to go in the house. They have to ignore the fact that there's 2-way mirrors in their rooms, right? Which is another red flag. Then they have to be the ones that make the choice, right? This was one of my favorite beats because the door blows open to the basement. And I think it's Marty's like, hey, man, let's not go down there, guys.
Yeah.
Right? He's like, well, what are we doing? And they go down, and this basement is just full of creepy props, right? There are creepy props as far as the eye can see. I was so pumped. And this is going back to the first time I saw it. When they all pick up different items.
Yeah.
Trying to figure out which one is going to encourage the next section of the movie. We see a circular puzzle ball, right? You're like, oh, please, please, please.
Which I know.
Creepy ballerina doll.
Your nips are just hard as hell for that circular
Later,
puzzle
when
ball.
we see Sawblade face, I was like, yes! Because Hellraiser's my favorite. I will say, if I had one gripe with the movie, which is pretty lame, they did pick the worst monsters to be our titular monsters. Like, of all the things we see in the movie, right? We see Sawblade face, giant monsters, giant snake, giant robots. We see the people from The Purge, essentially.
Yeah.
The hillbilly zombies feel like the lamest monster they could have put at the core of this.
Okay, I agree with you. But I think this is another part of the movie satire is that's the bit.
Yes, exactly.
And again, I appreciate that because that's like half the fun is because when you cut back to the facility and they're like, all right, it's the Buckners, and they're like, why is it always what? It's always the fucking hillbillies. Like, well, that's why maintenance picks them. They're unoriginal. They're maintenance.
It's supposed to be like we're watching a bad horror movie, right? It's supposed to remind us of 80s movies that are slapdash together and show that there is more to it, right? That there's a greater hand that was moving those films. So if you did like Sawblade face, I feel like this movie somewhat falls apart because then your monster's so interesting. We're going to want backstory. We got to do bigger set pieces of chains and clamps. You can't put a classically awesome monster in the midst of this story. It will derail the kind of meta investigation.
I really do like how, and this is like the smartest thing about the script, is it does such a good job of not intriguing any of us into the actual horror movie happening. We all just want to see where this is going to go. And I think that was the best part about watching it the first time. Because this is the thing. It does have diminished returns watching it. Like, it's a cool watch. Like, it's a fun movie to watch. But, like, in terms of the bit and the gag, the diminished returns of watching it over and over again, I will say, like, it gets a little hard to get through the first, like, 40 minutes of the movie once you kind of like, you're like, come on, like I know where this is going. I love though that element of the script where basically they're like, okay, what's the lamest version of this fucking horror movie we can write? That we can like not even layer on top, but like basically just like the layer of frosting underneath before we get to the other part of the cake. How thick can we make that layer? Because that's the layer everybody wants to get to, and that's the facility, which is fucking awesome.
If you go online and just pull up a list of monsters that exist on the whiteboard that we see in the movie, it's incredible, right? We saw a unicorn murder, snowman, the blob, cow skull giant. Like, there are just incredible, like, just the list of these. I'm even thinking back, I'm like, did I see all of these? The KKK is listed as an option, which is incredible. But again, I think that part's fun, because what we're really doing in this segment is we have our menagerie of monsters, which is great, right? The monsters pay off in that incredible sequence when Marty and the main girl, what's the main girl's name? Dana. Marty and Dana are trapped, and they're in this little control room, and all these guys with guns are like, come out, and they're like, just shoot him, but not the virgin, shoot the fool first. It's like, all right. When he presses that button, and ding, and there's this beautiful hold. This beautiful hold of the guy's like, huh, what? And then, all the monsters fly out, and like the giant bat and the snake and everything, the murder robot, they are just eviscerating every one of these guys, and blood splatters the control panel. You're like, that's the payoff for all the monsters we wish we had gotten in the movie. But the reason you need something like the Buckners at the start, right? Which aren't bad. We got like the guy with the coals in his stomach, the giant hillbilly, the little girl with one arm. It's not great, but it's something. What we need in this segment is to do things like spraying the pheromone, right? Show that they've been drugged. My favorite bit in the movie, one of my favorite things I've ever seen in a theater, is this is the segment where Chris Hemsworth's like, I gotta jump the gorge. I gotta get across, right?
Dude.
I'll go for help. When we're in the theater, right? Because they almost make it out of the tunnel. We see Richard Jenkins flying through the bunker because he's got to hotwire it to blow up the tunnel. Again, they don't stop and go, that seems rather suspicious. They just keep going with it, right? Because they're in a horror movie. When he gets his bike out, he's like, I'm going to jump the gorge. And also you're just looking at it, you're like, I don't think physics would have shown that you were going to
support you doing that, but
yeah,
sure,
like,
go for
is that
it.
a ramp? Right? What are we? You're jumping from two even spot. Neither here nor there.
Just go for it.
Seems like classic horror movie jock logic.
Yeah.
When he smashes into that force field,
what an amazing! Isn't that an awesome reveal?
I mean, that's like one of those moments.
Different movie.
There are so few horror movie moments that truly shock you like that.
Yeah.
It came out of nowhere.
I think what's so awesome about that is because we're talking about like this month movies where it's just like it's like a huge twist. That might be the only time I've in a movie been like shocked. My system just got shocked into another film. You're like, what movie are we watching now?
Oh yeah, because in horror movies you're like, all right, we're getting ready for a kill, right? We're doing the music, we're doing the tension, the build up, characters are walking around. Even jump scare movies. You start to kind of get the rhythm, right? If you watch The Conjuring, you start to get the rhythm of, okay, something's going to happen. Something's going to happen. You have an expectation. I can't think of very many moments. Maybe Hereditary's car scene.
Yeah.
There are so few moments in movies like this where my defenses are so down low and I am totally flabbergasted. I remember the audible, huge reaction in my theater as he hits that force field and just dunk, 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 and like he bounces all the way down and it keeps activating grids, right? Like it's in Halo. And you're just like, dear God. It's great. It's great.
It's awesome.
So again, we feel like, okay, so now they get jumped in the RV. She's in the lake. Another scene I love in this is they come out and Jenkins like, that was close. They're like, we didn't, it wasn't our fault. We didn't mess up the tunnel. They're having their party, right? One of the images of this movie that I think best sells the movie, they're doing the movie, right? And we're watching in the back on like the security camera footage they have of this girl getting rocked. Dana is getting whooped by this giant hillbilly, like his Rob Zombie character. She's getting beaten for what feels like 3 to 4 minutes. We were just like, dear God.
It's pretty bad.
In the revelatory mood, the boisterous party mood in that control room, it's kind of one of those funny moments as a horror fan to sit back and be like, oh yeah, like we really do sit and rejoice at these just shockingly horrifying acts of violence.
It's pretty brutal. That, like, Dana's death is pretty vicious.
Yeah, I mean, of course she doesn't die because Marty comes to her rescue, right? The fool didn't die.
No, not well. The fool didn't die, but like Dana herself, like that, like the beating, and then when she gets like torn apart, holy shit! I remember just being like, "Woof."
Yeah, it's a lot. Like she's getting maimed, right? So Marty saves her with his giant bong coffee mug, which I was like, if there was something I've aged into more than that, I don't know what it is. That's the exact life I'm trying to lead at this phase. This is when we enter the underground bunker, right?
Right.
So I thought that moment was just a cool, like, horror fans, you're here, we're dissecting what we love. Maybe take a minute and think about how many beers and joints you've crushed.
Just enjoy.
Smiling and laughing with your friends as these human people are being sacrificed to this ancient ritual.
Yeah.
It's gnarly, man. So walk me through as we start to go down and we explore what's happening. He just dropped Sigourney Weaver on us, dude.
It's a perfect drop. Like, I think this is the thing is you can kind of hear it. You hear it when they talk to her on the phone a couple of times, but I'm like, that's a nice little cameo. Like, oh, I know it's when Sigourney Weaver actually shows up, you're like, damn, dude, we're hitting this movie. Like, we're going to hit. Like, we're going to fucking, like, let's do it. When they go down in there, so they get through easily the bloodiest thing I've like besides the substance, that's the bloodiest thing I've watched this year. Or within the
dude, unicorn murders. We've got, I mean, just people being slaughtered left, right, and center.
Okay. Bradley Whitford, the merman death. I'm like, here it comes, because you knew it was coming too. So like when they break into the facility, like the control room, and he's on the ground, and you can hear it. You're like, here it comes. It's gonna happen right now. His reaction is the reaction everyone in the theater like.
Come on!
Oh, come on! Like that, and okay. I don't know if you ever. So I found the graphic of like who picked what on the board.
Yeah.
This is why you and I are Richard Jenkins and Bradley Whitford. I definitely picked Merman. And Sitterson, which is Richard Jenkins' character, his pick, Hell Lord.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah, see?
Represent. But dude, watching that merman come and get him and then blood starts spraying out of the blow, I was like, it's beautiful. And it's funny because as we're going through the carnage, it's actually Dana who ends up stabbing and killing Richard Jenkins.
Yeah.
And in his dying breath, right? Which I thought, it's one of those, because it's a horror movie where your expectations just start shifting inch by inch.
Mm-hmm.
He, in his final breath, he's still committed to this mission, and he just goes, please kill him. As he drops and he starts dying with a knife in his belly, right?
Right, yeah.
And again, the movie shifts on us a little bit under our feet again, where we're going from, it's these guys in a bunker torturing these children, right? Torturing and destroying the children. We see that all the other countries have failed, right? The Japanese school children have sang a song and have turned the ghost back into a frog. So, and they've had a perfect record forever, right? We're right behind them. If the USA fails, this reason for these tortures existing will be unfurled, right? And it feels like one of those things in the movie where you're like, oh, well, this is horseshit. Like, this isn't a real thing, right? This is like a Silver Shamrock's Halloween 3 kind of corporation. Like, I don't buy what we're being sold. When Richard Jenkins says, please kill him, there's a level of, with his dying breath, his commitment to this mission, he somehow has seen something or knows something that is very scary to the audience. We're kind of doing this fun payoff, right? Of watching all these monsters get got. That's a very subtle kill. And in that moment, that's when Richard Jenkins takes us out of the comedy for a second and puts us right back in that, oh man, there's a reason for this. There's real stakes about to hit.
I think that's what's so crazy about this, like, probably like 15-minute sequence is like, it's so gratuitous for 15 minutes straight. It's just kills after kills after kills. And you're like you do like become fully desensitized to it. because, you know, you watch a guy get eaten by a merman and it blows out the back. You're like, yeah, that's fucking hilarious. Like, I'm laughing. I'm enjoying myself. And then that happens. Again, it's just perfect screenwriting. Mm-hmm. That happens, and you just, like, you're brought completely back into, we're back into this, like, movie, and now we're
Wait a sec, that wasn't that fun.
Now we're in, like, it's not even a horror movie. We're just, like, at the end of a, like, big fantasy film, like, sort of a drama thing. Like, you're at the fucking, you know, you're at the crest of Mount Doom. Like, all these kinds of things where you're like, what is going to happen now? Like, how is this going to unfurl? So they get down into this, they get down into the ritual chamber, and that's when Sigourney Weaver shows up, which is pretty fucking cool. Like, again, she is a really, in a movie filled with reveals, she's a fucking great reveal. Like,
yeah,
it's also just Sigourney Weaver, you know? Like,
yeah, she's amazing, right? And essentially,
I don't know what it is about
she's
her.
got this gun, and she just has power, dude. She's just powerful. Yeah. She's Ripley. We've seen her stand against the alien hordes.
Can I ask you this, though? And this is something that I think is really fascinating. We've watched, within the last month, we've watched like a lot of Sigourney Weaver movies comparatively. Mm-hmm. This is not the first movie she's like the director of something. Like, she's like a pantsuit lady in a lot of movies. Like, I watched Paul recently again. She's that person there. She's this person in The Gorge.
The Gorge.
Like, what is it about Sigourney Weaver's presence? And it's not, I mean, look, obviously Ripley is part of it, but like, what is it about Sigourney Weaver that puts her in charge of a bunch of people? It's pretty fascinating.
Because in every one of those movies, when she lays down the law, you're like, yeah, I'd get to it. Like, I wouldn't mess with her. I wouldn't cross her.
You think
she just exudes, don't mess with me. Authority. I'm in charge. Again, very much like we see Ripley by the time she's in 2 and 3. She's just like, I know what's up. I'm taking, and as we watch people be like, whatever, woman. She just keeps being right and being badass. We are trained as a movie audience, especially a horror movie loving audience, to know if Sigourney talks, you best listen.
Are you sure it's not because of that basketball thing in Alien Resurrection? Because this is
I'm
really
100% for certain the basketball is not a part of her legacy.
Come on,
but apparently,
own up to it.
She did drain that in one.
She
take.
did. No, that's not true. It took her
that's
like 17
what I heard.
takes.
It took 17 takes?
It took a lot
Someone
of takes.
Someone lied to me. I think Ron Perlman's the one who was spreading that lie, that she went up and dunked it. Anyway, still, for 17 takes, that's pretty good. But yeah, Sigourney Weaver's raw power. When she comes out in the Gorge as the evil face of the corporation, you don't blink. You're like, yes, it makes sense that Sigourney Weaver is working for powerful money behind the scene. Makes perfect sense. So she comes out, and she's essentially like, this is just what's got to happen. This has always happened. Essentially, you're just being punished for the sin of having youth, right? Having a future before you. And again, it's one of those kind of things in this goofy movie that's pretty sinister, right? If we're not destroying potential of these young archetypes, right? All of these kids represent an archetype that one of us in the audience can relate to more than another, right?
Right.
And it's not just killing people. We have to destroy possibilities in future. We have to take away potential, right? And Sigourney kind of lays that out. You're like, dang, that is dark as hell. I do want to say this, because she even says, you know, and you, the virgin, and Dana's like, excuse me? She's like, well, we work with what we got. Times are a-changing.
Right. Yeah, see, that was, I'm like, wait, are the ancient ones the ancient ones are super progressive, apparently. They're like, yeah, right.
The ancient one's like, what's a couple bust?
What's
as
a couple
they have
bust?
that
It'll be
energy of the final girl.
As long as they seem like a virgin, like, yeah. Dude, just go to the fucking...
And Marty's doing his real, you know, anarchist. Well, maybe the system needs to end, man. By the way, one thing I loved, I did read a thing that his costume had to be schlubby because apparently Franz Kranz was absolutely ripped. And so, like, when they go jump in the lake, he had to not jump in and wear extra layers because they're like, it'll be weird if our stoner fool is absolutely shredded.
Okay, two things. One, you were okay. So Sigourney Weaver been practicing the shot, but she did do it in one take. Two,
boom, boom. The legend.
Two,
goes.
okay. I have to shout out. I think Fran Kranz is one of these incredible actors. Like, he's in so many things. Like, and he got cast in a lot of Joss Whedon stuff, but he's not just a genre guy. Like, he ends up in a lot of stuff. He is one of those just journey actors who can chameleon himself into anything. Like, I've seen him be a lot of different characters. He's in this great movie called The TV Set that Jake Kasdan directed, where he's just a total fucking douchebag. Like, I'm finally an actor person, so I like buy a black car and like I won't smile at pressers and shit. Like, he just does this. It's like the perfect bit. But that's one of those great things about those actors is because, like, he's totally ripped. So they're like, I don't know, make him wear like 4 different shirts so he doesn't look like... So he
like
looks
all
like
of us at the end of the 90s where he just had the long sleeve under the T-shirt. Like, that's just how it was.
I have been sending... Because it's cool now. It's cool again. I have been sending my kid to school in long sleeves with a T-shirt because,
Yeah. No. It's back. We're back. We're about to be fashion icons again, dude.
That's right.
I'm glad I kept all my stuff. Right. So essentially he's doing his anarchist, like, man, maybe the system needs to go down. And Sigourney Weaver's like, hey, jackhole, this is not a philosophical stoner debate about how if the system burned down, this would be great. This is one of those things you hear with young people a lot.
Yeah.
Where they're like, we should just burn it all down. It's like, do you realize the agonizing death? As Sigourney Weaver says, we're talking about the agonizing death of every person on Earth. When these systems collapse, there is a ton of collateral damage. In this case, it will be everyone on Earth, right? So she kind of checks his, like, stoner, like, I took some philosophy classes in college attitude. Yeah. I have to say, one thing I adored in this movie, and I don't know why Sigourney Weaver doesn't just waste him immediately. Like, why is she not just there with, like, a rocket launcher? Yeah. Does she not have a personal security guy who's just like the John Wick that can take him out immediately? I know for the story we got to get some final information out, but it feels like Sigourney Weaver's bad at her job in this one in a way that we just don't see that much. That's a lie. She was also bad at her job in The Gorge. Neither here nor there. But she's so powerful. She still presents well in a boardroom meeting.
It's true.
I love that Dana actually points the gun at Marty.
Me too.
And is like, we're talking about everyone, dude. In Dana, you see that kind of nefariousness creep in. Oh, well, I can live. Because we say the final girl can live.
Yeah.
That her death is optional as long as she's last and she has suffered.
Mm-hmm.
And watching Dana, who inverts the final girl trope of the most kind of pure and noble, put that gun up to him and be like, sorry, man, you got to go. I thought that was ingenious. Also, I think she should have pulled the trigger, dude. She gets chewed up by a werewolf and caught. I have to say, by the time this movie ended and they're just sitting there like smoking a joint and like hanging out, I was like, she still should have been rolling over trying to finish Marty off.
I legitimately, this time watching, I'm like, wow, that's an incredibly selfish 20-year-old thing to do, is say, well, you know what? Fuck the world. I don't care.
Well, right, and that's the thing. It's like Marty is the guy we like the most in the movie by light years. And at the end of the movie, watching it this time, maybe it's because we're getting older, I was just like, selfish, childish, small-minded. If I were Marty, I was like, I'd like to think I would have fucking thrown myself in that pit. I would have jumped and belly flopped right down into the lava or whatever. I gotta say, it's funny, too, watching this as it's aged with me. It's like the South Park thing, right? You start watching, you're like, yeah, I'm one of the kids. And now you're like, oh, I'm Randy Marsh.
Everything sounds like shit, yeah.
Yeah, and you're just like, I think these kids suck.
I think they're fucking selfish dicks.
I think Dana was right. She should have pulled the trigger and blasted him. If you're putting the entire... And this is the thing. The movie leaves just enough doubt where we're like, well, this could all be BS. Like, what's really going to happen? All the other countries failed. Maybe it'll just be like whatever. But again, you go back to that Richard Jenkins moment, and you're like, no, this is not good.
This is pretty real.
And yeah, lo and behold, she gets bit by a werewolf. She's dying out. He comes back after, killing Sigourney Weaver. And they're just sitting there like, wow, man, ancient gods, bro. And just like, getting baked. And then I will say I thought the punctuation of the giant hand coming out, not my favorite bow to put on the movie. But at that point, the movie's done. You just got to give us an image.
What are you going to do?
I was still impressed how much this movie worked for me. Because it also feels like one of those with the meta inversion. Once you don't have the reveals, and I think this month especially, the thing to track with these kind of movies, does the movie continue to stay engaging and captivating once you know the reveals?
Right.
And I think this one really does.
Oh, yeah. I think this one does Without a doubt. I think that's the impressive structure of the script. And then the execution itself, like Drew Goddard is such a great director. Like when we've seen him do a lot of movies.
I can't believe this is a directorial debut.
What a directorial debut. And he's gotten to do like a lot of TV. He's done a lot of TV at this point. But like the script though is just so well paced. Because this is the kind of thing, like if you don't pace this movie correctly, and I say that as a script, in the movie, if you don't pace this out correctly, can you imagine just like with one misfire, what a total disaster of a movie this would be?
Yeah.
Like tonally would be a total miss. I keep saying T words. It would be a total miss. And then if you pace it incorrectly, you know the reveal too quickly. And like, it's not that we're not sort of, I think what's cool is until Chris Hemsworth hits that huge wall and just like cascades down the Halo wall, we all are sort of still like, what's going on? Like we're just sort of scratching our heads a little bit. We have a vague idea. I think this is what's the key sort of piece of the movie. And again, it's a lot to do with the fact of how it starts, which it doesn't start with the kids. It starts with the facility. There's something amiss. Like no matter what, something is amiss.
We're watching them in a golf cart, and then that bright red cabin in the woods, right? And you're like, that's not, wait, what? Those don't seem to go together.
Like, so something is amiss the entire time you're watching it until Chris Hemsworth hits the wall. And then it takes that just like, literally just shocks your system into a new movie. I think, again, that is the key element of making this movie work the whole time is you can give up the ghost on a lot of stuff. Like we literally watch these people surveil these individuals in the house. Like, but at no point do they just like, do they just, until the end really, at no point do they just give up like what's actually going on.
Yeah. And it's one of those, we can just still go back and watch this as any 80s horror movie you found, right? Like it still has all of those functioning bits. I don't know. I think this is such a brilliant mashup of a film. Alex. Oh, go ahead. One more.
By the way, I did keep saying that Dana got brutally murdered. I meant Jules. Sorry.
Yeah, Dana did not. Jules
I forget these girls.
Rocked.
I forget these girls' names.
Yeah. Jules and Hemsworth were getting
Jules
rocked. Hemsworth, obviously, yeah. All right. Alex, what's the most messed up moment in Cabin in the Woods?
I mean, like, there's so many entertaining moments. Like, I hate to put it this way. I don't know if I have like a messed up moment really. I think my favorite like moment in this movie is legitimately just like that. It's that pause before all hell breaks loose when the monsters come out of the elevators.
The monster menagerie unloading and murdering all of these nameless guys.
It's the pause.
It's
like,
the payoff bloodbath we have been waiting for. In this movie that shows us there's an entire army of nightmare creatures. That is such a... It's the cacophony, right? It's a
so
symphony of blood and violence, and you're like, yes!
Yeah,
and literally, we get an orgasmic gush of blood just splattering and everything.
It is just this, like... That moment is like every nerdy horror, metal... it's you know, it is the, you know, it's the guitar riff you were listening to. It's like it's this whole thing. Like It's a moment that I think we all sort of like didn't realize we were waiting for like 20 years, and then we get it and we're like, damn, that was hot.
Yeah.
Like,
oh, you thought Freddy versus Jason is cool? Check this out.
Yeah.
If I had to pick the most messed up moment in Cabin in the Woods, to me it absolutely has to be, and perhaps because I saw it in theaters, it's when Hemsworth bites it on his bike against that force field. That is truly one of the most shocked I've ever seen a theater. There's a couple, right? The Hereditary car kill. There's a scene in Paranormal Activity 2 when the mom is just in broad daylight, like doing mom stuff at the kitchen counter, and all of the cabinets blow open at once. I remember being in a theater packed with people and just seeing popcorn fly in the air because it got all of us so bad. Yeah. This was like that. The audible reaction from the audience. Whoa! We were so unprepared for that moment. Because, again, we are watching kids being attacked by monsters sent by a corporation. The fact that he just was trying to get off the game board and we watch his body go ting, 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 and like dribble down this force field was the kind of shocking moment you did not see coming in this setup. And it's a movie that's telling you, hey, watch every corner because you don't know where it's going to come, and they still got us. That was a truly messed up moment to me. I thought I was blown away by that decision.
It was awesome.
That's it for Cabin in the Woods. We are just beginning our April Fools, a nipple twist curation. I don't know why it's got to be nipples. It always comes back to childish things with Alex. I'll work on him. It was his fault. Guys, please go to misfitparade.com to subscribe to the newsletter so you can see what we have in store for you with our addition to the Monster Menagerie, Mr. Cream Jeans and Gang. We would appreciate that. Go subscribe to the Misfit Parade YouTube so you can see video versions and other fun stuff we have over there. We have short content from the podcast on all the socials, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Wherever you're at, we're there. Those are great things to send to your friends to let them know what we're working on. Send an episode they like or a movie they like to them. Let us do it from there. Messed Up Movies Podcast, Patreon. The best way to join the community, support the show, and get a ton more awesome stuff from us. We appreciate everyone who does that. Thank you. Please, if you'd be so kind, that does mean the world to shows like us. More than anything, thanks for the time. We'll see you